Coming to our next basic component, that is product concentrate. Now, product concentrate is nothing but what is present inside the container. That is the formulation of the aerosol system. We have seen that there are three formulations that are present inside the aerosol container. You have solution system, which you call it as a two-phase system. Then you have suspension or dispersion system or emulsion system. This suspension or dispersion system and emulsion system we have called it as the three-phase system, isn't it, in an aerosol? Now, depending upon the formulation, different excipients can be used. Like you can have an antioxidant, you can have emollients, you use solvents and co-solvents, you use humectants, anti-foaming agents, surfactants, film forming agents, preservative, wetting agents. These are different excipients that we use in an aerosol system. Let us come to the first system, that is the solution system. Now, solution aerosols are phase system aerosol, as I have told you earlier. They consist of what? They consist of product concentrate in a propellant. So you have the product which is present inside the propellant, or the product concentrate may be present inside the mixture of propellant. So they can be present inside a single propellant, or this product concentrate can be present inside a mixture of propellant, or this product concentrate or a mixture of propellant and a solvent may be present. So you have a product concentrate. If this product concentrate is not directly miscible in the propellant, then what you are going to do is you are going to take this API, you are going to take a solvent, you are going to mix them, and then you are going to add a propellant, okay, and whereby you form a homogeneous mixture of this propellant as well as these product concentrate as well as the solvent. So what you have is inside a container, okay, you have a solution, right? And the solution, it consists of what? It consists of propellant, it consists of solvent, it consists of mixture of propellant, it consists of solvent, and it consists of an active ingredient. Along with sometimes your co-solvent may be required, then your antioxidants may be required, okay, and your preservatives may be required sometimes, okay. So these all humectants may be required. So these all are present inside this solution system. Apart from that, above it, what you have is the vapor system of this propellant. So whatever propellant has been evaporated, so you have a vapor system also above it, and hence you call it as a two-phase system. So you have a gas system, okay, on the top, and you have the solution system that is present over here. We are talking about this solution system as of now, right? So this solution system is made up of product concentrate, a propellant, a mixture of propellant, and along with a solvent. Now these solvents are added for many reasons. First of all, they are basically added, these solvents and co-solvents are added basically to solubilize your propellant also and your product concentrate also. When you solubilize your propellant, what happens is it retards the evaporation of the propellant, and the propellant is there inside this system for a longer period of time, okay. Now solution aerosols, you have to remember, are very difficult to formulate, because most of the time your propellant or the mixture of propellant are non-polar in nature, okay, and they are very poor solvent to the product concentrate. So your product does not get solubilized inside this propellant, and hence preparing a solution aerosol is very difficult. So as I told you, many a time a co-solvent is being used. This co-solvent helps inside your solvent. You have mixture of propellant, and along with that you have ethyl alcohol, or you can have propylene glycol, you can have dry propylene glycol, or ethyl acetate, or hexylene glycol, or acetone. These all solvents are being used, okay, along with this product concentrate and mixture of propellant, right, in order to prepare a solution aerosol. Now, examples of some of these solution aerosols are food preparations, okay, your local anesthetics, your spray-ons, okay, protective spray-on protective films, your anti-inflammatory preparation, okay, and many aerosols which are used for oral and nasal application. They come in the category of your, these are some of the examples of your aerosol solutions. These aerosol solutions usually contain 50 to 90% of the propellant, okay, when they are used for topical aerosols. And it contains about 99.5% of propellant when they are used for oral or nasal use, okay, in the oral or nasal cavity, okay. Now the quantity of propellant, the percentage of propellant, okay, is very, very important. As the percentage of propellant increases, the degree of dispersion it increases, and you get spinous of the spray. If the percentage of propellant decreases, you get a wet spray, okay. Hence the percentage of propellant is very important. Higher the propellant, okay, the wetness of the spray it decreases, right? You get in the form of nice mist, okay. Now so that the atomization, okay, as the propellant percentage of propellant increases, the atomization also increases, so the wetness of the spray it decreases, right? Are you getting me? The particle size usually that is used in the spray vary from near about 5 to 10 microns in inhalation, and near about 50 to 100 microns in case of the topical spray. This is about the aerosol solution. Let's move to the next formulation, that is suspension aerosols. Okay. Now, suspension aerosols, as I told you, are the three-phase system. It consists of, if you take a container, it consists of a propellant system. So you have a propellant system over here. Inside this propellant system, you have fine particles of the drug. Okay. So these are the fine particles that are present of the drug. So you have a liquid phase. You have these as this yellow, this blue as solid phase, okay, and then you have, so these are the three phases: gas over here, liquid in the form of propellant, and these solid particles in the form of drug. So these are the three phases that are present, okay. Hence they are known as three-phase system. Usually that happens when the drug, okay, the active ingredient is not soluble either in the propellant, so it is not soluble in the propellant, as well as it is not soluble in the solvent system also. Hence we are not able to prepare a solution out of it. So as we are not able to prepare a solution out of it, what we do is we disperse these particles, drug particles, inside this propellant system or propellant and solvent system, okay. Usually the drugs that have been used in suspension aerosols are anti-asthmatic drugs. Your steroids, your antibiotics usually are given in this form, okay. Now when the ball is actuated, okay, what happens is this suspension emits the formulation, okay, and what happens is what comes out of the actuator is your propellant along with your solid particles. This propellant it vaporizes immediately, okay, so it goes off. So what remains is the fine dispersion of your solid particles of your product concentrate, that remains, and that is deposited, okay, wherever you want to, maybe on the lungs, maybe on the pulmonary tree, okay, sometimes maybe on the skin, etc. So wherever you want these drug particles to go, okay, they are deposited onto it because your propellant gets evaporated off, right? Now there is a problem that happens when you are preparing the aerosol. You have to take care that there is no agglomeration, okay, of the particles. That is, there is no increase of particle size. There is no particle size growth, okay. This particle size growth, what it is do is it is going to do the clogging of the wall, which we talked about earlier, that wall clogging should not take place. Also you have to maintain the moisture content, and also as I told you, the particle size initially, the particle size should be small first of all, and there should not be the growth of particle size also, so the growth also should not take place, right? The agglomeration should not take place because it is going to clog their wall, right? So how you are going to maintain this? This can be maintained. Usually the particle size that is required, okay, is in the range of 1 to 10 microns, okay, for the inhalation aerosols, and in between near about 40 to 50 microns for the topical aerosol. This is the size usually is required. Why this smaller size is required in case of inhalation aerosol? Because in case of inhalation aerosols, the particle has to travel from the mouth up to the lungs. Okay, so this travel should be facilitated. If the particle size is larger, then the particles due to gravity are going to fall nearby only. Okay, maybe in case of throat, etc., they may get deposited in the throat if the particle size is very high. Hence, the particle size should be very low in case of the inhalation aerosol. So we said that the particle size should be less, first of all, when you are preparing a suspension aerosol. Secondly, there should not be any particle size growth also when you keep it for a period of time. So you have prepared the aerosol today, the particle size is small, but there should not be particle size growth also when you keep it for a period of time inside the container. For this, what you are going to do is you are going to use lubricants such as isopropyl myristate, or you can use liquid mineral oils, or you can use surfactants such as sorbitol triolate, oleic acid, lecithin. They can be used in order to overcome this particle size agglomeration. If you overcome the particle size agglomeration and growth, okay, this particle size agglomeration is definitely stop the growth of the particles, and this growth of the particle, if there is no growth of the particle, then clogging problem would also not take place. So this clogging problem or the growth of the particles or particle size agglomeration, this can be stopped with the use of lubricant and surfactants. Okay. We also talk about the moisture content. Usually the moisture content of the formulation should be kept below 200 to 300 ppm for the product to work in an effective manner, right? Ingredients usually used should be in an anhydrous form for that, or the chemicals which are capable of becoming anhydrous after drying. Okay, these types should be used, okay, in order to control the moisture content. This is all about the suspension. Moving ahead to the next type of emulsion, which is also three-phase emulsion, three-phase system, that is emulsion aerosol, right? Now, emulsion aerosol, as I've told you, it is also three-phase system. It consists of a propellant, okay? So you have a propellant. Inside this propellant, what you have is you have your sorry. Inside this propellant, you are going to have your liquid particles. Okay, these are your water particles. Okay, so you have a propellant in a liquid phase. In that, you have your water in your what you call it, liquid phase. So this is the liquid phase, and above that you have a gaseous phase. Okay, so in this form it may be present, or it may be a water phase. So this red whatever you see, okay, this phase, it is a water phase. It may be a propellant phase or a water phase. Inside it you have your, so this is the water phase, and inside this dark blue are nothing but your propellant. So you have a water in propellant or propellant in water, two-phase system, and above that what is present is a gas phase. Okay, so this is how it is a three-phase system. So it consists of an active ingredient, it consists of aqueous or a non-aqueous vehicle, and it consists of a surfactant, so that it can form a film around the globule and it can remain stable, right? So now, sorry. Okay. Now, depending upon the component, okay, you can get whatever is getting emitted. You can get a stable foam or you can get a quick breaking foam. Now, stable foam, usually if you see shaving cream, etc., there a stable foam is required. There are some advantages of stable foam also, and there are some advantages of quick breaking foam also. If you consider a stable foam occupies a particular area, small area, and it remains over there for a considerable amount of time. Okay. Whereas if you take a quick breaking foam, a quick working foam creates a foam. So initially when you spray it, it is a foam, and as soon as after the foam reaches the surface, it breaks. Okay, it collapses, and it gives it is in the form of your solution. So it occupies a larger area, whereas the stable foam occupies a concentrated area, a smaller area. So a quick breaking foam is created as a foam when it is emitted. Okay, but this foam collapses in a relatively short time. Okay, within few seconds this foam collapses. Now it helps you to apply the product concentrate to a larger area, whereby you don't have to do any manual rubbing, or you don't have to spread the product, right? It spreads immediately, so it falls. Okay, as soon as it falls on the surface, the foam is going to get disappeared and it is going to spread, okay, on the surface. So a larger area is being covered with these types of foam. Okay, and also active ingredient, the active drug, is more rapidly available from the breaking foam. Okay, so from a quick breaking foam, these advantages. Now the foam is produced only if you have this kind of an emulsion system, that is oil in water kind of an emulsion system, in which you have the water phase, which is the continuous phase. So you have the water phase. This blue is nothing but the water, which is the continuous phase, whereas you have propellant, which is in the dispersed phase. So when you have this kind of a system, that time the foams are produced. Whereas if you have a system whereby the propellant are in a continuous phase and water is in a dispersed phase, in this type of a system, the foams are not getting produced. Also, the foams, whether it is going to remain a stable foam or it is going to quickly break, depends upon the surfactants and the concentration of the surfactants. Okay, now just take an example how this is surfactant act. You have the layer, you have the dispersed phase, and I'm just telling you the normal way the surfactant is acting. So you have the dispersed phase, and onto the dispersed phase, what is happening is I'm sorry, 2 minutes. Okay, so what you have is you have a dispersed phase, and onto this dispersed phase you have the layer of the surfactant, okay, that is getting attached, right, isn't it? And this surfactant places itself. So your surfactant has two ends. You have a what you call that, you have a polar region and you have a non-polar region, or you have a hydrophilic end and you have a lipophilic end. So the lipophilic end gets attracted towards the lipophilic area, and the hydrophilic end gets attracted towards the hydrophilic area. You know all these things, right? Just for an example, if you have added a surfactant over here, then the surfactant is going to form a layer around this propellant, right? So this part of the propellant, okay, the inside part of the propellant is going to be lipophilic in nature, because like attracts like. Okay, so it is going to be the lipophilic region, whereas the next part of it, this part of it, is going to be the your hydrophilic what do you call that part of your surfactants. Okay, so in this way it is going to form a layer onto this dispersed phase. Now this layer over here, we are calling it as a lamina. Now depending upon the thickness of the lamina and depending upon how tightly the lamina is getting attached to this dispersed phase, depending upon that your foam stability is dependent. If your lamina, okay, is thick and it is tightly attached to this dispersed phase, then you get a stable foam. Whereas if this lamina is not thick enough and or it is not tightly attached to the dispersed phase, then the foam that you get is what you call that, non-stable foam. Okay, so this foam is going to get quickly dispersed. This foam is going to quickly get broken down. Okay, and it is going to spread. Whereas if the lamina is tight and if the lamina is thick, okay, then you are going to get a stable foam. Now the thickness of the lamina, the tightness of the lamina depends upon the surfactants what you have used. Okay, so depending upon the type of surfactant, depending upon the quality of surfactant, depending upon the combination of surfactants that you have used, depending upon this lamina thickness and the composition as well as the tightness of the lamina is going to depend. And depending upon that, it is going to decide whether your foam is going to be quick stable foam or it is going to be a quick dispersible foam, okay, or quick breaking foam, right? It depends upon that. Moving ahead, now surfactants, okay, the example, some of the surfactants that are used in emulsion aerosols are fatty acids which are saponified with triethanolamine. Another type of surfactants that are used are anionic type of a surfactant, or recently also non-ionic type of surfactants are being used. Now, non-ionic surfactants have advantages as they do not have any charge that are present onto it. Therefore, it has a fewer compatibility problems.